this guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Sir, before I begin, I have an issue that I need to address. As you know, and I've made applications several times, the disclosure in the record is entirely deficient. We've been trying to deal with these redactions. There's still redactions for parliamentary privilege, which the government has not removed. There's no legal basis for, as you've already ruled, to redact any document on the basis of parliamentary privilege. There's also the issue, as I've re-raised by email as well, the issue with the notes of this witness. The process that was used in dealing with that needs to be reassessed. These are important witnesses. I need rulings, and so does everyone here. The rulings on the redactions are so important. And for example, Ms. Jody Thomas testified and said that she supported the invocation of the Emergencies Act. But there's a note that we got after we fought for the one redaction we got that said Jody Thomas did not. And it was put up on the screen. It was notes taken. It had one Section 39 redaction on it. So if that's a cabinet document, we can assume cabinet knew about it. And it states that Section 2, no violence, and they were trying to come up with a way how to make this work anyway. That would have been very helpful to have when she was on the stand under oath. This is happening constantly. There is thousands of documents that DOJ is dumping.
If you can, I'm not looking for a speech. I understand there have been issues about redactions. I believe that one is one I ordered disclosed, and I believe you questioned somebody about it as recently as yesterday or the day before. I am not sure about the redactions, certainly for, just to qualify, the redactions with respect to parliamentary privilege. I didn't say it doesn't exist. I said it was novel and that the arguments presented were insufficient, and I ordered the 3 redactions disclosed. We received something, I think it's yesterday, or maybe it was even today, and I apologize, I haven't yet ruled on it. That's true. But I do my very best to make decisions. I try my very best to make them intelligent and thoughtful, and that sometimes is not done immediately. So that's sort of how I can respond to those points.
So, sir, I can make it very easy, and we've written your counsel for a set of them. So the law is such that where a redaction is sought on the basis of irrelevance, it is not the onus of the person seeking to have it redacted on the basis for irrelevance. It's the onus on the person seeking for it to be redacted. And the purpose for that is that all of the documents given to us are subject to the implied undertaking rule. So they don't become public until a ruling on their relevance is made.
Okay, well, I'm not in a position to rule on that. I suspect that's the request you made either yesterday or today, I don't know which, and I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to rule on it right now.
Sir, but...
So what I'd like you is if you could proceed with your examination, or that would be, I think, ideal at this stage, and I'll do my best to deal with the motion, the redaction issues, as soon as possible.
Okay, but I just want to put on the record that throughout this entire proceeding, all counsel here, and we're on national television, this is supposed to be completely transparent. This is the purpose of this.
I'm doing my very best.
It's not your fault.
Well,
It's just the fault that nobody's ordering DOJ to actually produce what they're obliged to do.
Well, that's something you can deal with in another forum. I'm doing the best I can here. I think we've gotten a lot of disclosure. There are issues, and we're dealing with those issues that are raised as they are raised. We dealt with the ones you raised, I believe, at the end of last week, made some orders, confirmed some of the redactions, and we'll deal with your most current application.
But could you just not order that the redactions for parliamentary privilege, because I can tell you, I've studied that area in and out. And the reason no one could provide you an authority for the purpose of a redaction on the basis of parliamentary privilege is it doesn't exist. And parliamentary privilege is, of course, an ancient doctrine. And if you would just order the production of the records without those redactions, it would remove a whole bunch of them. Then, if you would order the production of all relevant records with respect where irrelevant is claimed, those records are then subject to the implied undertaking rule. And there's no national security issue with those. If they were, Section 38 would be claimed. There's no cabinet confidence, so Section 39 is not claimed. And that has been the law since time immemorial. How can you contest if something's relevant if you don't know what it says? And my problem is that this witness is now on the stand. One of the documents is key in my submission. It is the notes of Ms. Jackson, which is the office assistant to this witness. There are redactions therein on the basis of irrelevance, and there are redactions therein also, I believe, on one of the other grounds. And I've sent a written motion, if you will, email to your council. We've been asking for these things and asking for proper production throughout this proceeding. All council are in agreement that we don't have proper production, sir.
Okay, well, I'm not sure you can speak for all council, and I'm sure they can speak for themselves as to whether or not you've been asking for this a long time. I'm not aware that you asked about those redactions,
So,
but maybe I don't have the records. But
So, sir,
anyways, we're going to have to stop this.
Yeah.
And despite your belief that the law is always very clear, my experience of 20 years is that's why judges are around. So if you could proceed,
Yes.
otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere.
So if I could bring up the notes of Ms. Jackson, which are at, so Ms. Telford, Sarah Jackson, she's your office manager, is this correct?
Yes.
All right. And so obviously she's a scribe and does scribing for you when you're in meetings?
No.
All right. So the notes that she takes, she has, if we can scroll down. And down. Right. So that says KT call, and I take it that's you?
KT usually does refer to me.
Right. So she's taking notes of a phone call she has with you?
I don't know.
You don't know. So that's on February 4th. Do you remember February 4th?
Yes.
Okay. So what happened on February 4th?
Well, no, I don't remember in that level of detail.
Okay.
Is there something you're looking for in particular?
Well, I'm trying to find out, because I have to build a record for this. Do you have any idea why anything in your conversation on February 4th in that note would be irrelevant?
I don't know.
And I take it when you spoke to Ms. Telford, or sorry, to this individual at the time, there was no lawyer present, was there?
I don't know what this call is.
Okay, so can we scroll down then? So you see there, the government has claimed solicitor-client privilege, okay? And you don't remember speaking with a lawyer on February 4th, do you?
As I said, I don't know what this call is.
Right, so how would the government know, if you don't know, that this is solicitor-client privileged? They couldn't, could they? So it's redacted, and this is the problem, sir. You have irrelevant.
Is there a question?
Yes, and so if we can scroll down. Okay. And in that note, on February 4th, I know you don't have a good memory, but in your conversation.
That's a,
No, I know good memory of February 4th. I know she doesn't have a good memory of it, but it wasn't an insult. Blair's Current Strategy Emergencies Act, right? So I take it your understanding, she's writing down what you're saying, and you told her that Blair's current strategy is the Emergencies Act. So it was Minister Blair's strategy to invoke the Emergencies Act on February 4th. That's your understanding, isn't it?
No, that's not my understanding.
So what was Blair's current strategy Emergencies Act on February 20 or February 4th, 2022?
I can't speak to what's written here.
You don't remember?
No, if you wanted to pull up notes of mine from February 4th, that might be helpful, but I can't
Okay.
speak to these.
Do you have notes from February 4th?
I have notes from a lot of days that have been provided.
You've been provided? Okay. Have you provided all of them to the Department of Justice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And would you say that you provided notes from each and every single day?
From any day I have notes on.
Okay. And with respect to this meeting, do you remember what you and Ms. Jackson were talking about?
I unfortunately don't know what meeting she's taking notes from here without more context. It may or may not even be a meeting I was in.
But obviously, you were discussing the Emergencies Act.
The Emergencies Act came up at numerous occasions, as we've said earlier earlier today.
Do you think it would assist the tribunal in this inquiry if Ms. Jackson testifies?
No, I think I can answer any questions you might have.
But you
that are
can't answer what
relevant.
that note says.
Is there something you're curious about that note in particular?
Well, on February 4th of 2022, Ms. Jackson, in a conversation with you, writes down Blair's current strategy Emergencies Act, right? And you hadn't even had an IRG at that point.
I believe you've had an opportunity to speak with Minister Blair.
Yeah, and I put this to him, and he said that it wasn't true. So wouldn't it be helpful if you can't remember?
I'm not sure that was correct. That
He said that he never had, I put the note to him, and he said that wasn't his strategy, that's incorrect. That was his
That
evidence.
doesn't mean it isn't true. I mean, all this note says is Blair's current strategy and Emergency Act underneath it, so.
On February 4th. When was the first time that the government came out and spoke that they were considering invoking the Emergencies Act? Do you remember?
Publicly?
Yeah.
I mean, there were questions from the media where ministers were speaking about the Emergencies Act long before it was invoked.
Yeah. And Minister Blair, I discussed this with him, on February 13th, for the first time, he went on a show and he talked about that it was under consideration from the outset. But then when he testified here, he said it wasn't. So was the invocation of the Emergencies Act under consideration from the beginning of the protest in Ottawa?
The Emergencies Act was something that was discussed at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a public conversation at that time, as well as a private conversation. There were calls for the Prime Minister.
If we can put the document back up, please.
Perhaps it's Brian Gover for the Government of Canada. Perhaps the witness could complete her answer to the question without interruption.
Oh, no, the document went down. I'm not done. I apologize. So thank you. So, and I understand that there was a consideration of a public welfare emergency, right? That's very different than a public order emergency. You know that. There doesn't have to be a Section 2 security threat, right? And
Are you talking about, I'm not sure when you're talking about or
you were
what you're
talking about from COVID, because you said it was under consideration then.
They did look at the Emergencies Act at that time, and there was a public call for that at the time, and it was determined because the Prime Minister was very reluctant, as he was during the occupation this past February, to invoke it. And so there's been conversations at various occasions about the Emergencies Act over time.
So when that note's taken on February 4th, 2022, are you saying that you're talking about it in relation to COVID?
I genuinely don't know what this note is, as I've already said to you a few times.
Okay. So if I can scroll up or down, or up, please, or down? We'll go down. Down's fine. Okay. So that says flag to KT, February 10th. And it's written in there that this is irrelevant. What does that mean? Why is it irrelevant? Do you know? 'Cause
So I don't know specifically, but
don't know either.
I could surmise that flag to Katie means it's probably a bit of a to-do list of things she wanted to flag to me
Okay.
that were obviously deemed irrelevant to what we are talking about today.
Okay, and could we scroll down again? And this one, where it says staff blockade, right? And then it has section 39 invoked. Do you know what that means?
I don't know why they invoked it there.
Right, and so I take it when you were having this phone call, there was no one else present on the phone other than you and Ms. Jackson, was there?
I don't believe that this is a phone call any longer.
Well, if we scroll back up, this is the second page. It's the
Yes,
way
it
it's
said
ordered.
flag
Oh,
to Katie at the top.
flag Kitty, okay. And so on February 10th, do you remember if Ms. Jackson was in a meeting with cabinet?
She is not normally in meetings with cabinet.
So how could, section 39 is a cabinet confidence. So how can, so this is the problem. Those are my questions.
Thank you.